In 2020, for the entire year, BYD deployed 10 gigawatt hours of batteries. In September this year, BYD deployed 4.2 gigawatt hours of batteries, and so far this year they've deployed 23.4 gigawatt hours in only 9 months. This puts them in position to potentially overtake LG Energy Solutions as the second largest battery manufacturer on the planet. By the end of 2020, BYD were actually technically only the 5th largest battery company in the world. But things have dramatically changed this year. I've got some information that I consider a form of insider trading. It's not technically insider trading, but it's information that only you will know, as it hasn't been reported on by the news media at all this year. Things have changed dramatically, and I think you'll be interested to see just how much BYD has increased their battery deployment this year. And what that means is very interesting for their prospects and for their share price. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Electric Viking. Fantastic to see you on the channel. Thank you for subscribing, liking, watching the videos, and for joining our YouTube channel premium membership options. There's 3 different options. You can click on the link in the description below to see what those are. But the crux of it is, if you join up, you will actually get access to videos 24 hours in advance. In addition, you'll get several videos per week that are exclusive member-only videos. Now, in July, CATL, the world's largest battery manufacturer, deployed 7.4 gigawatt hours of batteries. That was up 170%, and that meant they had a 32.6% share of the world global battery market. Second place was LG Chem, or LG Energy Solution, with 5.1 gigawatt hours of battery deployment, which was up 81% and a 22.5% share. They're starting to lose market share a little bit lately, LG Chem, because they're losing contracts due to, not many, but there's been a few fires in their vehicles, in obviously the GM, Chevy Bolt, and also in some Hyundai vehicles, so there had to be recalls. Obviously, now they are pivoting to use a different battery chemistry, lithium iron phosphate, but that is taking away some of their market share. Remember, these figures came in July, so they don't reflect the full damage control LG Energy Solutions has had to go into over the last few months, and they don't reflect what I believe will be a diminishing market share for them thanks to this bad publicity. Third place was Panasonic with 2.5 gigawatt hours of battery deployment, which was up 47%, with an 11% market share. And in fourth place was BYD with 2.1 gigawatt hours of battery deployment, up 218%, with a 9.3% share. Now, the interesting thing is BYD only deployed 1.2 gigawatt hours of batteries in January, but then in February, March, and April, they only averaged about 1.3 gigawatt hours of battery deployment per month. However, as you know, things started to dramatically change this year as BYD increased its new energy vehicle sales exponentially. When I use the word exponentially, I understand what that word means, and I mean that in a very literal way. To explain what I'm talking about, in January, BYD sold 20,000 new energy vehicles, which is a combination of plug-in hybrids and full electric vehicles. In February, the company sold only 10,000. February is traditionally a low sales month in China for obvious reasons, to do with holidays and other things. Then, in March, they sold 24,000. In April, 25,000. And then things started to change, interestingly, in May, when they sold 32,000. In June, 41,000. That's compared to June of 2021 of 2020 last year. Well, last year they sold 11,000 in June. So June this year, they tripled the number of battery vehicles they sold. Well, the same thing happened the following month in July. BYD sold 50,500 new energy vehicles, versus 15,000 the previous year. In August, the number was even more stark. BYD sold 61,400 new energy vehicles versus last year when they sold only 15,000. In other words, in August, BYD sold 4 times more new energy vehicles than they did the previous year. Well, guess what? In September, that figure was even more stark once again, with more than 4 times. In September 2021, BYD sold 71,100 new energy vehicles versus last year when they sold only, let me get this right, 19,800. Now, considering the fact that BYD deployed 2.1 gigawatt hours of batteries in July, and yet their new energy vehicle sales increased by almost 50% in September, that would mean that their gigawatt hours of energy storage, of battery storage deployment, would have increased by at least 1 gigawatt hour minimum. That puts them at 3 gigawatt hours of energy deployment in September. However, as you can see, BYD's new energy vehicle sales have increased by 10,000 every month for the last 6 months in a row. If we see the same trajectory happen this year, and BYD sells 80,000 new energy vehicles in October, in November they sold 90,000, and in December they sell 100,000, then BYD's battery storage will potentially eclipse LG Chem or LG Energy Solutions, possibly making them by the end of this year the world's second largest battery company, which would be big news, and of course would lead to a very large increase in BYD's share price. Now, the reason no one's reporting this information is because they just don't see it happening. They don't realize. And one of the reasons they don't realize is because battery deployment statistics don't come out for around 2 to 3 months after it actually happens. So there's a huge lag on this information. I think it's pretty clear to see, right, that BYD has surpassed Panasonic over the last 2 months as the world's third largest battery manufacturer. Because yes, Panasonic's pretty much only customer of any significance is Tesla. Tesla makes up 90% of their orders. Tesla's cars have increased in sales over the last few months, not exponentially in the way that BYD's have though. And in addition to that, Tesla is getting batteries now, a significant portion of their batteries from CATL. They also get batteries from LG Chem. So you can see that it's very likely, considering LG Chem's recent missteps, recent losses of contracts, very likely that by the end of this year, BYD will be able to deploy 5 gigawatt hours of batteries in December, meaning they will either be equal with LG Chem or surpass them in that month. Now, what I'm finding interesting here when you think about this is BYD is the world's second fastest growing battery manufacturer, but nobody is actually mentioning this. Nobody is actually recognizing this opportunity here. For example, put it this way. If CATL, the world's largest battery manufacturer, was also manufacturing cars and their vehicle sales quadrupled month over month over month for 3 straight months in a row, quadrupled, it would be huge news. But for some reason, the media is barely reporting on what is going on here at BYD. Now, the intriguing thing about all of this is the fact that the handset components and assembly is currently the largest segment for BYD by revenue at 48%, and it's growing extremely fast. Nobody is talking about this. However, over the next decade, it is the new energy vehicles segment that is expected to grow by far the most, boosted by favorable China government policies. Automobiles, mostly EVs, represented 43% of BYD's revenue in the first half of 2021. However, let's look at this. This is a very interesting story here. Revenue for BYD in the automobile sector was 42.8% over the first half of this year. Revenue for BYD in the handset components and assembly area, mobile phones essentially, was 48%. And revenue in rechargeable batteries and photovoltaic solar was only 8.8%. So you can see that BYD doesn't actually sell many batteries to other customers. They use them themselves. However, even in that sector, BYD has grown this for the first half of this year the most. It's increased in the rechargeable batteries and photovoltaic solar sector by 71%. So that's by far the greatest growth area for BYD. However, I believe one of the key reasons that BYD hasn't into any major supply contracts with other car manufacturers is because they want all their batteries for themselves. Why? Well, think about this. They're already struggling to produce enough cars to ship them to Australia. They've got massive orders from the Australian distributor who wants to sell cars here. They know they've got a huge market for it. They're getting bombarded with phone calls every day, they're telling me. But BYD's selling so many cars right now in China that they simply do not have the battery supply to ship out the vehicles to Australia now, as they had previously agreed to do so. Clearly, BYD is ramping up battery production at an incredible rate. Think about this. Last year in 2020, BYD deployed 10 gigawatt hours of batteries for the entire year. This year, they'll achieve that amount of battery deployment in only 4 months. 4 months, potentially 3, depending on what happens over the next couple of months. BYD's battery storage and battery deployment growth is exponential. You can see why I've been recommending people to invest in the stock. The Western world right now has really no understanding of what is going on at BYD. They don't understand what is happening. There's a confluence of different factors happening right now. Number one, BYD has a range of new models, the first of which launched in September, the EA1 Dolphin. This range of new models will come out over the next 6 to 8 months and will include about 8 different vehicles, which will all be running on a new 800 volt platform on BYD's Blade battery system. The market knows this product is good quality. They know it is basically fireproof, and they know that BYD's cars cost the same as equivalent petrol vehicles. Why else would BYD be selling 90% of their cars now that are either plug-in hybrids or full electric? Whereas last year it was only about 50%. What this means is customers are walking into a BYD dealership, they're seeing that they sell petrol cars, they sell plug-in hybrids, and they sell electric cars, and 90% are choosing not to buy a petrol car and to buy either an electric car or a plug-in electric car. The reason being the prices are no different. They're the same for either model. Now, just imagine when BYD has these new 8 models available, and all of those models are the 800 volt system, which has numerous advantages that I've talked about in other videos. I'll put a link in the description below to one of the videos I made about this new 800 volt system and the advantages it provides versus BYD's old. To be honest, it makes BYD's old cars look kind of like crap. Makes them look like an iPhone 1 versus an iPhone 6. That's the difference between their old vehicles and their new ones. They are massively better. If you look at the interior, the exterior, the specifications, the features, they are so much better that it's really night and day. And they haven't even started shipping them out yet. Basically, this has only just started. These new vehicles have only just started coming on the market in September of this year. Look at the growth before September of this year. It's been massive. There is enormous potential here for this company if they can deploy enough batteries. That is the key. The key is deploying enough batteries, because BYD they know Europe wants the cars. They've started shipping the cars to Norway. They know Australia wants the cars. They know America wants the cars. They know Canada wants them. They know New Zealand wants them. They know that there is an enormous export market available to them. However, right now, they're not even interested that heavily in that market because demand in China is enormous. BYD is one of the fastest growing companies in the world, and in fact has become the world's second largest battery electric car company this year, within a very short space of time. Their share price most certainly does not reflect the current position they are in as potentially the world's second largest battery manufacturer by the end of this year and the world's second largest battery company. Realistically, think about this. Think about the value of people are saying Rivian is worth. They're saying it's going to be worth $80 billion without selling a car. They don't even make their own batteries. They don't make semiconductor chips. They don't make the entire platform, the batteries. They're not virtually integrated like BYD. In fact, BYD, like I've mentioned, is the most vertically integrated company on the planet. So think about all this information, put it all together, and you'll see that BYD is massively undervalued. In fact, the price of the company should have tripled at minimum this year to reflect the growth of the company. At minimum, I think realistically the price should have gone up by 5x this year to reflect the potential of this company, because it is a growth stock. People are just not factoring in that it is an enormous growth stock. It should have a PE of a minimum of 400 in my belief. So what am I saying? I'm saying invest now. Why am I saying this? Because I want you to win. Over the next 10 years, there is going to be enormous disruption. It has already begun this year. I've made so many videos about what is happening. Take the opportunity now to invest in this disruption that is happening over the next decade, profit from it, and ignore the naysayers, because by 2030, the EV revolution will have been pretty much done and won. And the biggest players will be Tesla, Volkswagen, and the Chinese EV companies. Everybody else will be fighting over the scraps. Now, obviously, I haven't even mentioned other things that are going on at BYD. Right now, they're bidding over a $10 billion train building contract in California. They're also deploying buses, machinery, electric forklifts, electric trucks, everything you can think of. And the growth in those areas is increasing as well, massively. There are so many avenues for this company to compete in. And remember, when they compete, they are bidding against other companies who are having to buy batteries and buy parts and buy most of the vehicle from elsewhere. That is the current situation for the majority of the automotive world. They're used to outsourcing. They're used to buying it from elsewhere. BYD doesn't have to do that. Hope you've learned something. Thanks for your support. Thanks for liking, subscribing, all that stuff. Stay awesome. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.